Robert has just finished his degree, his BA thesis. Can you tell me something about the thesis, maybe the title?
Yes, sure. I'll start with hello, everybody, and thank you for listening. So, the title of my BA is the full title is Other People's Letters, Multi-Modal Epistolary, on the basis of Nick Bantock's Griffin and Sabine trilogy and Janet and Alan Ahlberg's The Jolly Postman. But
Right.
the shorter, the more like working title is just Multi-Modal Epistolary Fiction.
Okay, right. So, we'll just clarify a couple of things. So, multimodal fiction is.
A multimodal fiction is a very, I would like to say, a modern style of creating or fiction. It employs different modes, as the name suggests, multimodal, different styles of conveying the message the author wants to convey. So a good example would be comics and graphic novels. I think that's something which quite a lot of people are familiar with, and that employs both pictures and text to further the plot and to convey the message. So that is an example of multimodal fiction, where the two modes work together to express the author's intention.
And epistolary novels that's a form of multimodal fiction. So basically, I think some people will know that means letter writing, right?
Yes,
So
exactly.
in the form of letters. Can you say anything else about it?
I mean, sure, the epistolary genre is older than multimodal. I think that I should stress that. It started with Pamela by Samuel Richardson, and that's the work which a lot of people claim started the whole
Well,
epistolary.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Pamela
Yes,
was a huge success. It was like an overnight. It made him a. I think he was. I can't remember now actually, but I think he was about 50 when he. It was his first novel, so
quite possibly.
never too
Oh
late.
yes, exactly.
Might need some fact checking on that one later,
Post it in
but yeah,
the
it was a
description.
huge success, wasn't it? And he
It
followed it up
was
with
Clarissa,
Clarissa, right?
which I think is the biggest novel, like
One of the longest
genre-wise,
novels in the
in the
English
English language.
language.
I'm not sure if it's even not the longest. I have a feeling it is.
I
But
think it is.
anyway,
I think it is actually.
yeah, that's a slight digression, but it was also epistolary. And there's the famous, is that in Clarissa, the famous scene where the heroine is lying in her bed, scrawling a note while her oppressor is trying to get into her room?
Yes.
No, that's Pamela. I'm
No,
sorry,
that's
that's
Pamela,
Pamela.
right? Yes.
Yes, because that spawned the parody called Shamala by Henry Fielding.
Yeah.
So it shows that epistolarity is not only, it was extremely popular, but it was also ridiculed because many authors overused it, and it was very popular after Pamela and Clarissa. It was many authors used it, but it was overused, and so it was mocked for being unnatural and not lifelike. And so slowly the epistolary genre started to die out, and then it almost vanished completely, and then was revived. This is what I put forth in my dissertation. It was revived by the blending of multimodal and epistolary because it brings a new twist on this old genre by making by the multimodal addition of actually in the book having a letter stuck onto the page, because this is what multimodal epistolary actually is. It's not just a letter written into the book and then the plot goes on around it. It's the letter is the plot. So you have a book and a page in the book actually where there is a letter stuck onto the page in an envelope. You take it out of the envelope physically, you read it, you put it back, and that's how the plot is conveyed, not by any other means, just by the letters. And you're supposed to piece together what you're supposed to, hopefully, if it's well written, by the letters. Just that's my basic description of multimodal epistolary.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really, really interesting, actually. How it sort of came back because I think its original, the epistolary novel had quite a short life. Actually, I think it was a big sensation, and then it died away a bit. And then, of course, you have sort of Pride and Prejudice and so on, which are sort of semi.
Yes. It was the writing of letters was used by authors, as you say, by Jane Austen, for example, for a long time after the epistolary genre was basically dead, but it was just partially epistolary, so the novel can't be classified. So exactly like Pride and Prejudice, some of the plot is conveyed by letters, but it's not like the most important means of transmitting plot. Yeah. So, but as you say, it is. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to actually suddenly shift tone unless you haven't finished.
I just wanted to say that as interesting as it is, as it sounds, it's a very niche genre. There aren't many representatives of this multimodal epistolary, and so when I was searching for inspiration for my dissertation, it was quite. There were not many things I could choose from, so I wasn't spoiled for choice when it came to the primary sources or when it came to the secondary sources, so articles and books which have been written about and around this topic, because there really isn't much. It's fairly new, fairly fresh as a phenomenon, and that was a really interesting feeling, because it was almost like I was a trailblazer exploring a new topic which hadn't really been discussed much in depth. But on the other hand, that was also an issue because I didn't have much to base my thesis on. I had to do a lot of research, and without my supervisor, it wouldn't have been possible, because he gave me access to a lot of databases and libraries that aren't accessible to the public. So I think that without a well-connected academic, it's very difficult to to write anything sizable about this.
So
genre.
your sort of advice maybe is to, when you choose your topic, you have to get a balance then between you don't want too many sources for your topic, but you don't want a dearth of previous essays and topics as well. So you just about had enough to work with.
Yes, just about. It was. I'm sorry. It was manageable, but there was no abundance of material, so it was at times quite difficult, I would say so, because when I was writing the theoretical chapter, because the BA, for those who will have to face this, you have to have a theoretical chapter and then perhaps a comparison of two books. This was the case in my dissertation. The theoretical chapter was fine, I had enough materials, but then when writing about the two books, the Griffin and Sabine trilogy and the Jolly Postman, in fact, there was more written about the Jolly Postman, even though it's a kid's book, a book aimed at children, rather. There was quite a lot written about that and the epistolarity in it, but about the Griffin and Sabine trilogy, there really wasn't much, even though it's a fascinating book. It's a really interesting project and a great read, so I thoroughly recommend that, but it was also not explored academically. So that would be my advice, yes, to look for something which you enjoy as academics, as researchers, because that's very important to write about something which is at least in some way connected to your interests, because otherwise you're stuck with something you're not interested in, and it's tiresome. But when you write about something you enjoy, it's really pleasant, almost, I'd say, if academic research is something you enjoy. But also don't look for something which is too new, so there isn't any research done about it, because in a BA thesis it's important to have a lot of secondary sources, a lot of material which you can base your work on.
Yeah.
And so it's an important It's important to have the right balance of interest and materials.
So I'm going to now ask a question to finish off. Really, you had the distinction of finishing your third year during the coronavirus. So
Yes.
now I think you said that you had actually written most of this thesis before the whole sort of lockdown situation
Exactly.
and so on, or at least you had the research part done. But did it affect in any way?
Thankfully, I had, as you said, I did most of the work before the lockdown. I had done most of the research and had most of my secondary sources. So, in fact, when the lockdown came, I just had to sit down and just write the second and third chapter and then polish it off a bit. But thankfully, the pandemic didn't really influence my work. I was lucky enough, once again, I repeat, to have a very good supervisor who supported me throughout this whole process. So I was definitely lucky to have done the work
perhaps
before.
In a way, it actually helped because maybe it's like, oh, well, there's no temptation now to go out and
meet people,
party or something.
Exactly.
So it's like,
I
well,
could just sit down and
have I got
work.
something? If only I had some big project to be getting on with. Of course, I've got the BA thesis to write. So no, maybe actually it was quite lucky, a blessing in disguise.
In disguise.
So actually, just to conclude then, because of this coronavirus, you haven't actually finished where you should have finished by now with, what do they call it when you have to go back and do some
the BA defense.
A defense.
Or the Viva. I think the Latin name is very long, but it's shortened to Viva. So it's BA defense, but because of the coronavirus, I couldn't complete my teaching practice, which means that I'll have to go back in September to then officially finish my BA course of study. But
it's more of a formality.
Yeah, exactly.
They ask you a couple of questions.
3 questions. I don't want to tell a lie now, but 2 questions are about your topic of choice from, say, any course of study that you want, British, American literature, translation, whatever. You get 2 questions about that and 1 about your work, about the theoretical background for your work. But everybody says that it's a formality and there really isn't anything to be scared of. So hopefully when I go back in September, it'll just be, I should be okay, but fingers crossed.
Okay, well, good luck with that. And you're going you're welcome. And you're going to continue at E02 and do the masters.
I will indeed.
And have you already some idea? You can save this for season 2, but
exactly. I was going to say that, but I can give a spoiler.
Go on.
I'm hoping to write about Native American literature and culture. It's a fascinating topic. I've just finished 1 book. I have a couple more lined up for the summer to do some background reading, and it looks like it'll be a fantastic topic, and I'm really looking forward to writing that. So in season 2, hopefully I'll have a lot to say, and maybe I'll need more than 15 minutes to show my appreciation for the topic.
Oh yeah, probably for the masters interviews we'll maybe go into even more detail, because masters are much more personal, because you really have not complete autonomy, but you have a lot more choice what you actually write about. Yeah. So all right, well look, thank you very, very much indeed for talking with me today.
Thank you for having me.